Good morning and welcome to World News here on TVP World. I'm your host, Diana Skaya. The trade war has just hit a boiling point. Donald Trump's tariffs have officially come into effect. Now, these include a 104% in levies across all Chinese imports. China was set to see tariffs increase by 34% as part of Trump's push, but the U.S. president tacked another 50% after Beijing didn't back off on its promise to impose 34% retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods by noon Tuesday.
So we're going a 104% tariff. That's why additional tariffs on Chinese goods are in place effective midnight tonight at 104%. Until they make a deal with us, that's what it's going to be. I think they'll make a deal at some point. China will, they want to make a deal. They really do. They want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get it started.
America, pay more attention. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said following reports that Chinese citizens fighting for Russia were captured in the Donetsk region. He sees it as a significant development in the ongoing war, pointing out that while China has officially claimed neutrality, it has implicitly supported Moscow.
There are documents, passports, and even credit cards. These are Chinese citizens. I believe this is a very important moment. I think the United States should pay more attention to what is happening now. And we expect that this is another country that is militarily supporting Russia's invasion of Ukraine, after Iran and North Korea. But there's a difference. North Koreans were fighting against us on the Kursk front. The Chinese are fighting on Ukrainian territory.
The U.S. State Department announced it's alarmed after two Chinese nationals were caught allegedly fighting alongside Russian forces in eastern Ukraine's Donetsk region. The department's spokesman, Tammy Bruce, called the participation of North Korea in the war in Ukraine, quote, disturbing.
You know, it's disturbing. It's disturbing with North Korea participating. It's disturbing with the Chinese soldiers having been captured. We're aware of those reports that Ukraine captured two Chinese citizens fighting on behalf of Russia in Ukraine. China is a major enabler of Russia in the war in Ukraine. China provides nearly 80% of the dual-use items Russia needs to sustain the war. 80% comes from China. As President Trump has said, continued cooperation between these two nuclear powers will only further contribute to global instability and make the United States and other countries less safe, less secure, and less prosperous. I think that's an understatement.
Ukraine injured another mass drone attack on civilian targets overnight. The war-torn city of Kharkiv was rocked by at least 15 explosions after Russia launched waves of Iranian Shahid drones, according to local officials. Now, the State Emergency Service reported the strikes hit civilian businesses, warehouses, industrial facilities, and service stations. At least 2 people were wounded. Now, Kharkiv is located just 30 kilometers from the border with Russia and is Ukraine's second largest city, and it has been faced nearly nightly attacks in recent weeks. Elsewhere, 14 people were injured in strikes on Dnipro, Ukraine's 4th largest city. Despite mounting pressure from the United States for a 30-day ceasefire, Russia continues its relentless attacks on Ukraine's civilian infrastructure. The United States is weighing the redeployment of as many as 10,000 troops from Poland and Romania, according to media reports. Now, this comes amid President Trump's push on Europe to take more responsibility for its own defense. According to U.S. and European sources, which spoke with NBC News, the U.S. Defense Department is considering a proposal to withdraw around half of the 20,000 troops sent to Eastern Europe in response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022. The sources reiterated, however, that the scope of the potential drawdown is still under discussion. Responding to these reports, General Christopher Cavoli, the commander of U.S. forces in Europe, said that he has consistently recommended keeping troop numbers at the same levels as the last few years. Asked whether any withdrawal would impact the U.S.'s ability to respond to a crisis in Eastern Europe or a potential conflict with Russia, Cavoli said it would. The U.S. military, in coordination with Warsaw, has decided to relocate troops from the Jasionka airport, a transit hub for supplies to Ukraine in southeastern Poland. According to Professor Jarosław Gryż, who spoke with TVP World, the move signals yet another message from President Trump. It's time for Europe to shoulder more responsibility for its own security.
Well, we observe the signals given by the President Trump for Europeans to take more responsibility and to be adequate, let's say, prepared for the giving the security and the safety for Europe. And I think that from that perspective, the President Trump, in context of his first election and here in context of the second election, shaked very much the European leaders. And he really indicated them the time where the United States were obligated to give a security means for Europeans ended.
Moving on now to the South Caucasus, protests in Georgia against the country's pro-Russian government continue. Members of the country's press have now also joined in to show their support for colleagues arrested during police crackdowns. Now, the protests in Georgia's capital, Tbilisi, broke out after the ruling Georgian Dream Party won last October's widely criticized parliamentary elections. Since then, the government has backed away from potential EU membership and enacted Kremlin-style laws to quell dissent. Police have cracked down on the protests and arrested journalists covering the unrest. The protesters also laid flowers to commemorate the 1989 Tbilisi massacre, when 21 people were killed after Soviet military forces crushed a pro-independence demonstration. Thousands turned out in the Hungarian capital of Budapest on Tuesday night to protest the recent ban on LGBTQ pride marches. The law curbs rights for public assembly and allows authorities the use of facial recognition technology to track down those participating. Now, the protesters blocked the Erzsébet Bridge in Budapest while dancing and showing European Union and LGBT colors. It's the latest in a series of protests against the law banning prides, which the right-wing government of Prime Minister Viktor Orban says is necessary to protect the youth. Organizers of the Budapest Pride have said they are still planning for the event to go ahead coming summer when it celebrates its 30th anniversary. Any attempt to break up Bosnia and Herzegovina is unacceptable, said EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas during her Tuesday visit to Sarajevo. Her comment comes as the country grapples with its biggest political crisis in 30 years. Now, the crisis broke out when Milorad Dodik, the leader of Republika Srpska, one of the constituent elements of Bosnia and Herzegovina, was sentenced to 1 year in prison for defying the rulings of the High Representative who oversees the implementation of the Dayton Agreement. Dodik, however, refuses to observe the rulings of the Bosnian court and is avoiding imprisonment. As a consequence, EUFOR troops in Bosnia were reinforced by hundreds of personnel, which, to quote Kallas, sends the clear message that the EU remains firmly committed to stability of this region and the security of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Now, just last year, over 10,000 birds were brought into one of the main bird sanctuaries in Warsaw, and more than half of them shouldn't have even been there. Come spring, we encounter fledglings that are out and about learning the ropes from their parents. No other place or individual can better prepare them for adult life than their natural habitat and parents. Alex Sumlinsky spoke to experts about when humans should intervene in their development.
On Tuesday, the Warsaw Zoo held a press conference about its spring educational campaign. The campaign aims to educate people as to how and when to help young mammals or fledglings that we may encounter in the wild or in the city during these months of spring. Especially April to June are the months when we encounter these kind of animals a lot. So now, when exactly should we help these kind of animals?
We implore the public to take newborn animals, whether birds or mammals, only when it is warranted. Never pick up fledglings that can stand on their own legs. voice a cry, and have their eye open, because these are all indicators of a healthy bird.
And chances are their parents are right around in a tree or bush close by, waiting for us to go away.
These fledglings have developed feathers, but they can't fly yet. They don't fit in the nest. Their parents teach them to hunt for food, find shelter, and avoid the city's many dangers: dogs, cats, and bikes, for example. In case of danger, it's best to move them to a nearby bush or shrub so that they're hidden and away from the street or sidewalk.
So what kind of birds need our help or intervention?
If it's an unfeathered fledgling, it has a wing hanging wrong, or it's asleep during the day, that's when you need to step in.
An injured bird has to be transported to a sanctuary in a cardboard box with holes for ventilation and bedding, so the animal won't slip.
When it comes to unfeathered fledglings, it's important to make sure they don't get cold. It's necessary to supply them with a source of heat. That can be a hot water bottle or a jar with water, but it has to be taped down so it doesn't roll and crush the bird.
So it is actually in the wild that these animals will be able to learn the necessary survival skills, and it is their parents that are their best teachers. So if we really want to help them, let's make sure that we tick off all the boxes that were described by the experts. For TVP World from Warsaw, Alex Somlinski.
Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala's ex-social media account was hacked on Tuesday morning. A government spokesperson said fake posts had appeared on the account, including one about a Russian attack on Czech soldiers. The false information, written in Czech, claiming Russian forces had attacked Czech units near the Kaliningrad border, was later removed. Posts in Czech and English about responding to U.S. tariffs were also removed from Fiala's account, who has more than 360,000 followers. Tune in at 8:15 for World Talks to learn more on the attack on Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala's ex-social media account. And that completes this edition of World News here on TVP World. My name is Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more news and features.